Here's what happened. Literally a few hours earlier today, I was able, with the help of AI, to create a new model called the pressure balloon model that ties directly into this question of why am I not further ahead by now? Which is a question that has come up a lot for me since starting my first business over a decade ago. And so you're not alone in experiencing that question. And it's a very common question to come up multiple times. And so what I get excited to share with you is not only the habit that helped me to reframe this, but now this model, because I've talked about how the body is like a balloon. It can fill up with the stress and the overwhelm and the pressure, and you got to find ways to release it. But I was wrong in how I was approaching this. And with being able to notice some really cool connections and tying it together, this model now in its current version, I believe has the potential to change what you notice in your day and how you experience your days moving forward. And I believe as well, looking back to now over the 100 episodes I've done, that this is going to be one of those most important, one of the top episodes that I've ever done for how important this is going to be for you to really get this. This is Make Burnout Extinct. I'm Robert David Weeks. I'm really excited that you're here. I know you could be doing a lot of different things with distractions out there. And I know you've had a lot of shit and challenges before this time together. I know you're going to have a lot of those challenges afterwards. So let's get present. We're going to do a deep inhale through the nose, exhale out through the mouth. You can sigh it out, stretch it out. So here we go. Deep inhale. And then release. Stretched. Oh, yeah. Welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm really excited that you're here. And then if you haven't done it yet, you can subscribe and follow the show for the latest episodes. I have two commitments for you. First one is to continue to grow this show. So by you subscribing and following, it helps to honor that commitment. It's been wild for the growth already that's happened in over 8 months since the launch of the show. And I'm excited for the future. I'm going the distance with this show, and it wouldn't be possible without your support. The second commitment I have for you is to be honest with you, to really share what it takes to make burnout extinct. There's a lot of fluff out there, a lot of bullshit that's out there. And so I'm excited to share with you through my own personal experience with what to avoid so you don't hit burnout. Because again, one of my main reasons for hitting burnout back in 2018 after the social media conference where 500 people came together was the amount of lying that I was doing. I lied a lot. I lied to myself, lied to the team, lied to the community, and that pressure built in my body, and I didn't have ways to release it until hitting burnout. And looking back, saw the pattern, but in the moment, it was just trying to survive, trying to get by. And so it can be really easy to go down that road. But I believe if you don't make honesty part of building the business moving forward, your body inevitably is going to force you to stop. And so I want to be honest with you. I do want to share all the amazing results and the cool things, but also this can be one of the hardest things that you're going to have to do. There's a lot of behind the scenes, putting in the reps when no one else is watching, showing up for yourself, being able to build trust with your body, moving through a lot of fear, honoring all the different emotions that come up when you get off track, and then continue to move forward and get back on track. But what I want to remind you is that it absolutely is possible for you to make burnout extinct. So thanks for being here. Let's get into it for today. What I want to talk about is this question of why am I not further ahead by now? And then share with you that habit that helped me to reframe. And then I want to share with you the context before getting into this model, the context of how I looked at life growing up, getting into business over a decade ago for my first business where I was a DJ. And then getting into this model, the pressure balloon model, explaining it in detail for you. It's going to be the first time I've ever done this publicly, of sharing this pressure balloon model in this new version, because I've talked about it in the old version of how the body is like a balloon, but this blew my mind and has changed my perspective on what I'm noticing in my day. And it just happened today. So that's what gets me really excited to be able to share it with you. It's fresh. And so I appreciate you being able to navigate this with me as I'm sharing it. And then with this habit, I'll dive deeper into tying it in, but I want to share the habit to start so you have it for the reframe. And with why am I not further ahead by now? When that can come up a lot is in comparison. There's a lot of that comparing online, and there can be the highlight reel that pops up a lot. But with comparison, what is really helpful in that moment is to compare your own baseline of where you were to where you are now as you're building the business and as you're looking at your own quality of life. Because there are different styles of success that I'll get into later, but it's noticing all of what's happened for you in the growth and being able to compare it that way for the habit rather than the comparison of other people and what they got going on, because you don't know their story. Some of it could be bullshit. Some of it could be a lot of years, a lot more years than you've put in. And so you just don't know what they've gone through. And that's where a lot of that uncertainty, it becomes pointless to even dive into that because it can be exhausting and draining. And there can be no way to close out those stress loops unless you have a conversation with the person. And if it's hard to have that conversation with that person right there in that moment, that stuff can build for this pressure. And so that's where it's helpful to switch it into this habit of looking at your own baseline and noticing your own growth and being able to have a moment to reflect on that, to from there gratitude can form, and then this moment of realizing just how far you've come along in the journey can help you to fuel you to keep moving forward and keep showing up and building this business. Because if you're in it right now and you're experiencing those hard days, I want to remind you, at any level of success, there are the hard days. They don't go away. It's just, how do you handle those hard days? And how are you able to increase your capacity to handle more hard days and move through them? And that's what I get really excited to talk more about with this pressure balloon model. So for the context, as I told you, first business I started was me DJing, did bar scene and then college parties. That's how I got started in this over a decade ago, which is already wild to think about how long that's been. That's wild. And in those early years, I was trying to navigate this. There's a lot of fear starting the business, a lot of fear of what other people would think. This fear of, how do I have to show up for all these people? How do I have to show up as being a business owner? Like, there was a lot of the shoulds that I would take from other people of how I should show up, what I should do, learning from the experts, but I wasn't filtering it through like what I really wanted. What I wanted to build with this business for my own quality of life, diving deeper into those sides of the question, or those sides of myself, understanding that. And it's really important for you to know that I had a lot of fear throughout growing up as a kid, to how I lived my life, to going into adult, to as a business owner. I moved through life with a lot of fear, and that would cause me to not trust my body. I created habits where I started not to believe what I was doing was the right way, not like constantly second guessing myself. And so I share that just to remind you, if you're experiencing that right now, you're not alone. Like, I've gone through that too. And so I wanted to understand more of the world, but I had such an intense fear to understand the world. And then at the same time, this desire to understand the world. And it's like trying to honor both of those and then continue to move forward with that desire to want to understand and learn. And I go back to saying, the more you understand, the less fear grows. And that is so helpful in understanding, as you're building the business, what's going on, how you move through your day, how you experience the weeks, the months, the years, how you stay in the game longer and handle the growth that's happening in the business. All of that comes back to understanding, because there is going to be a ton, I'm going to say it for the third time, ton of uncertainty that comes your way as you're building the business, and you've experienced that. And so when you can handle that uncertainty with this certainty that you are going to handle any of the challenges that come your way, that's a beautiful gift to give to yourself. And that's what is a gift that can happen when you make burnout extinct. When you have that trust with your body to then realize that these nearly 40 trillion cells are doing their damn thing to support you and what you want and what you're building in this business, rather than constantly battling you. Because the battle comes to the burnout beast, is how I look at it. This burnout beast that's there trying to pull you back to your old ways and your old patterns, that can cause you to stay stuck for where you're at in life and where you're at in building this business. And that can feel very exhausting, draining. There can be so much pressure that builds where a lot of times entrepreneurs don't realize their best work because you throw in the towel before you ever get there to the best work, and you get out of the game. And I don't want that for you. And that's the point of this show. That's why I'm so passionate about this, so fucking fired up to share with you the insights that I learn and the insights I'm getting from other people. And so that's how I move through life. And it ties into then this pressure balloon model because I felt like there was stuff missing. I wanted to tie the pieces and see the whole forest rather than the individual trees, like really get a good view of what the hell is going on. And I believe this pressure balloon model is such a game changer for you to understand what is happening in your day as you're building the business. And then moving forward, how to navigate and experience those days. So I'm going to explain the old version of it, and then I'm going to explain the new version of it so you can understand the differences. So the old version, as a reminder, I've talked about how the body is like a balloon. It can fill up with stress, with the overwhelm, with the anxiety. Your body is a badass. Absolutely powerful. It is incredible. I was so scared of my body. I've talked about it before of how I was so scared of my own heartbeat. And so to create that relationship now with my body of trust, and I have my off days, nobody's perfect, but to come back to like that recognition of how much trust is there and strength is there is incredible. And so that means you don't have to constantly tiptoe through your day and always live in fear, as the fear being in the driver's seat, driving your life. And what I've said is that you want to have habits, these I call burnout proof habits, that release the tension out, release the stress out, close out these stress loops. Because if you don't, then that balloon is going to, like a balloon, if you don't release the air out, the balloon will pop. And how I've said it in the past is that popping for the balloon is hitting burnout for the body, where you're so exhausted. I define burnout as a major life transition that is forced on you by your body, is where it's so hard to get out of bed. You don't show up, if that's showing up in the relationships, showing up in the business. That's where these really difficult and hard decisions happen for how you move through life. And there can be a lot of unnecessary suffering there too, that I don't want. I don't want you to have to, I feel like you can get the lesson before. And yes, suffering is part of this. Like suffering is going to come up. We all experience it. But I do think you can get the lesson faster with the information that I'm sharing, and then noticing it as you go through your day and experience that pain and that suffering, being able to make the changes faster. It's like the great example of that, now that I think about it, is like trying to move through a room with the lights off compared to having the lights on. Totally different of how you move through and navigate that room. So that's what I've said, is like you release the air out is a way to move towards making burnout extinct and having it be at this this nice baseline for you. And I talk about the nervous system, of how the nervous system is involved with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic is a fight or flight, freeze, fawn. You're creating a stress response in the body with a perceived threat, the threats that are out there throughout our day. And then being able to move the nervous system, for the phases, into parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest, the calm, I feel like I've just released the stressed out. And it's kind of like you're hanging out on the couch, chilling. And it's like a great vibe. So I talked about that as well. And then I've talked about habits, like sticking with your habits and staying consistent with your habits. And so all of that, coming back to this question of why am I not further ahead by now? All that comes back to this question and the habits. So the new version, let me get into the new version, how I look at it. And this, again, going back to this question is one of those balloons that come up. So how I look at it now is that your nervous system is there to notice threats constantly throughout your day. And, the threats way back in the day could be like a tiger in the wild. Like you notice a tiger and you have that stress response from the body, and you then have an action that you do, and it releases then the stress, closes out the stress loop, and then you move on with your day. And that's where you're navigating between these phases for the nervous system. Well, in the modern day, it's different for what these perceived threats could be. So that could be having a really important presentation that you have to do for the business. That is creating this stress buildup because you have uncertainty as to how it's going to go, for how they're going to respond to the presentation. There's a lot of pressure of what this impact could have in the business, in your life. And so there's a feeling of not being in control that can come up. And that is where the body feels like there's a perceived threat here, and they can get into a stress response. The other could be running late to an appointment. You're running late to like the dentist, and now there's that stress that the pressure that can build in the body, where it's like, okay, you don't want to be embarrassed. You don't want them to think bad of you for your reputation of not being on time when you're always on time. Like, that's another example you can think about it. But what happens is when the body goes into this stress response, there's this signal to the body that I've noticed in my own life where it's a pressure. It's some sort of pressure that comes up. Pain, discomfort, whatever, however you want to look at it, it comes up. And so what happens is, instead of it being all one big balloon for the body, it's looking at it more as each one of these situations that come up in your day are individual balloons that fill up in the body, where the body has a stress response, so the balloon fills up. And now what can happen is you've got to close out that stress loop. You've got to release the stress out of the body. And so that is where, like, one way or another, your body is going to release the pressure. It's a pressure that builds, and a pressure has to get released. That pressure can be destructive and can move you away from what you want for the business and for your own quality of life, or it could help you to move forward towards what it is you want for the business and for your own quality of life. And so I do want to break it down into those areas. But then also what can happen, and I did this for many years, is that you can suppress the stress in the body. So you can push it and ignore it, and you'll get back to it later on. And that comes back to realizing that each one of us has a threshold of capacity to handle unprocessed stress that builds up in the body for these different balloons, thinking about them as balloons for these moments of stress. You can handle a certain amount of these balloons in your body for thinking about it, where until you have to release. And so for the release, how that could look is either you can do it consciously, or you could do it just from what you're used to in your habits, or how you've grown up as a kid, or your influences from family. And so that can look differently. It could look like being passive aggressive in conversation. That could be with a partner, with friends, with teammates, to people you're working with in the business. That could be one way. Another one could be yelling is another one, like yelling and being pissed off and getting frustrated. Could be another way to express it. The other way could be numbing. So like numbing it and suppressing it and pushing it down and ignoring it, or not even accepting it as there. Try to think some other ways it could release. Those are some of the key ones where it could release automatically. And then there are the conscious ways, which comes back to these habits I've taught about, the burnout proof habits. Conscious ways could be like, all right, I gotta punch like a punching bag right now and let this anger out. So I'm gonna go and work out, and I'm gonna I'm gonna hit the bag a little bit, or go for an intense run or an intense workout. Could be another one. I've done this is yelling in the shower, like, screaming, releasing it out in the shower, just like the sound, like a deep sigh on the exhale. Or it's a similar feeling of when you sit down on the couch as you get older, and you're like, oh, like you do the you have that sigh, sitting down and then getting up. That's another way of releasing. I'm trying to think of other ways that can release. Releasing could be getting the work tasks done that caused the stress response in the first place. So if that is a message you have to send out in an email, getting that email done so you close out that stress loop. But those are conscious ways. And those are ways that can help move you forward in building the business. But what you have to remember is that the goal is not to avoid the pressure. The pressure is going to come up naturally at any level of success right now. And so that comes back to the habit I'm going to get into for the reframe, for what's the different styles of success, but it will happen at any level. And so it's not, you don't have to like walk what feels like walking on eggshells throughout your day. and trying to avoid all the pressure, but it's how do you handle that pressure? And then how many of these balloons do you pop is how you think about it. So if you had like 20 different balloons that form in your body in the morning, let's say one balloon is you realize you forgot to go to the grocery store. So you don't have the food that you really enjoy eating for breakfast. You forgot to send the email out last night. And so now you realize you got to send out an email this morning. Or you got the message from someone telling you, hey, you didn't send the email. The other one could be you didn't wake up at the time you said you were going to wake up at. And so that created some guilt, some stress response coming up. You missed the workout in the morning. So all of those could be those balloons. And so now you have to make sure you're finding ways to release those balloons. Popping those balloons is how you think about it. And as you pop the balloons, what happens is you then can feel more energized and channel that energy to move forward in building the business and improving your quality of life. Now, for burnout, what's happening is that it's your capacity to handle it's when you hit your capacity for the amount of balloons that your body can handle. All these different balloons that are popping up throughout your day, you're releasing them throughout the day consciously and through just automatic habits that you've done in the past, if you're not recognizing what's going on. And then if you aren't able to release fast enough these balloons and they pile up, that's where then over time, because it doesn't happen overnight for burnout, but over time, that's where you can then hit burnout, where again, as I define it, a major life transition that's forced on you by your body. But in the meantime, you'll have these moments where you'll explode beforehand. That's where the passive aggressiveness can come in. That's where you can feel irritated for your body and just you get all these body signals that are telling you, hey, something's not going right for your behaviors or your habits. This is where things that used to bother you, if that was like dishes in the sink, or used to not bother you, like dishes in the sink, all of a sudden start bothering you. Those are some examples. And so those are the signals that I've talked about before of your body telling you that you're headed towards hitting burnout and being dragged by the burnout beast. And it's your reminder of when you get those signals to make those changes. But those are just balloons that are trying to be released from the body. And then you have these other, I'm trying to think, these other balloons that are coming up. I'm losing my train of thought here. What was I getting at with that one? Oh yeah, then you have these other ways that the balloons can get released in the body, which is more the implosion inside, the tornado thoughts. And one of those ways is this question that comes up of why am I not further ahead by now? That is one way to release the pressure, because then you can go down that tornado thought of what does this mean about you? Is there something wrong with me? Am I not doing the right thing for the strategies? What's everyone else doing? Let me compare what everyone else is doing. And like that can take you down this spiral of trying to find the answer for why you're not further ahead by now. And those are ways that your body's releasing, but it doesn't become very helpful if you stay stuck in this question and then you start blaming yourself and you start saying there's something wrong with me, and then this is just how life is, and this is how this is going to be moving forward, and I'm just stuck, and you get into the helplessness and this victim mindset, and then years go by and then eventually you get out of the game. Like that's where it can go, but it's a way of releasing that pressure, but just in a way that may not be very helpful for you right now. There can be clarity in understanding why you're not further ahead, though, and that can be a signal of like you recognizing what are you not doing right now that you could be doing, or what needs to stop and change for the behaviors and for the habits. And that is where the habit that has helped me to reframe this comes in. And so pressure balloon model, this is the newest version, is realizing that there are hundreds of these moments, and that's conservative for me to say that, hundreds of these moments throughout your day where your body is you have these balloons that are coming up in the body, and then you have many ways that these balloons are being released for the air out of the balloon, thinking back to the stress releasing out of the body. And so that's happening. And then it gets to a point where you're either moving in the direction that you want to move towards for building the business and your quality of life, or you're not, or you're staying stuck or moving in the opposite direction towards hitting burnout. And then it's remembering that your body has a capacity to handle a certain amount of these balloons before you hit burnout. And so you want to make sure you continue to focus on the habits that are going to help you to release the working out, journaling, getting your thoughts out on paper, getting the tasks done that you've been putting off in the business. All those ways are ways to release that energize you, that help you to move forward towards what it is that you're building for the vision for the business and your own quality of life. So that's that for the model. Now getting into the habit for the reframe, this is one of the ways that can help you to release the stress and pop some of those balloons that are coming up for you that are related to this question. And so what it does is when you get hit with the comparison of why am I not further ahead by now, recognize what's going on of like, okay, I have this thought that's coming up. It's a way for me to release pressure, but I want to now consciously channel this in a way that's going to energize me and move me forward rather than staying stuck or keep me in my old patterns, in my old ways. Because what it is a pattern. It's what you've been used to. So when you notice that question come up, it's then focusing on this habit of putting a rep in for it, of looking back on your past for what your baseline was in the past to where your baseline is now, and noticing the growth. And this comes to understanding the many styles of success. So there's a lot of styles out there of success, but sometimes the ones that are highlighted the most is like the money, the growth, the impact that you're making in the business. Like those can be the big ones. But then the other levels of success is, well, how are you feeling emotionally? Like, are you able to handle these emotions and this workload where, for me, example, when I first started off the business, there were many nights, especially leading up to my burnout, where I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'd feel this intense pressure in my body and this stress, going back to the intense amount of balloons that were in my body, where I didn't know what the fuck was going to happen tomorrow, like of how I was going to get through the day and through these weeks and make things work for all those challenges. And so I had a lot of trouble sleeping. Now I don't have trouble sleeping. I have, I'm not perfect. I have some days where that happens, but for the most part, like I can go to bed and I'll go to sleep and I won't be having my mind racing with all these different ideas and thoughts and all this stuff because I've put in the reps with habits of understanding how to honor these emotions and then move through the emotions. So that's a success because then I get to stay in the game longer and be able to feel rested and move forward. And again, not every day is perfect, but that is one style of success. The other style of success is my health. Like I am consistent with working out and stretching, focusing on corrective exercises, being able to feel more open and expansive rather than like hunched over in my day and having like that big boulder is what it feels like in my shoulders where I'm just like rolled over and like, it's just moving through life in like such a depressing way. Like I have the hard days, those come up, but I'm able to move through the hard days and there are better days than others. But by the end of it, I still find ways to make it a win of not just completely getting destroyed by the feeling of being defeated in the day, where I can get off track for a few days and then I have to recover. So it becomes more effective to continue to stay on track and continue to put in the reps and move forward in building the business and growing and adapting, most importantly, because I heard this once, which was so powerful recently, where, we're dynamic as human beings. And so adaptability is so important as you're building this business and moving forward. And it's such important to hold on to that. So that can be a style of success. Another style of success is the growth of the business and where the business is at. But you've got to realize that the business is one part of you, and understanding when you look back at the baseline, where can you notice that growth and use that as leverage to fuel you, to support you in those other areas that still need work, that still need to put in the effort. And again, all these different areas require an ongoing process of putting the reps in. But you can channel those areas that are going really well for you, channel that as fuel to support you in those other areas that you need to improve on and put in more of those reps. And this habit of looking back at your baseline and noticing that growth is so helpful for perspective. And then afterwards, when you put that rep in, celebrate. When you put the rep in of noticing this question, changing the behavior that you do of looking back now on your past and noticing that growth, then celebrate. I've thought about it before. How you do it is tap with your shoulders, raise your arms up, and go like, yeah! Like create a physical response for a celebration. You can do a head nod. I started off doing this like, woo! And if you've never done this before, you're going to have resistance that comes up from the body because it's something new. And with anything new, it can create uncertainty. It can be perceived as a threat. And that's where you can get into the stress response from the body, where then resistance forms and the burnout beast tries to pull you back to your old ways and say, don't celebrate. But what I'm here to tell you is that celebrating does two things for the body. One, it reminds the body you want more of this. And it's a way for the body to release dopamine, the internal reward, which can help you for continuing to show up and put the reps in. If it feels great and it's exciting and you feel energized, that makes it easier to show up the next day or the next moment that comes up. So to recap it for you, here we go. The recap is the pressure balloon model, understanding that throughout your day, your body is creating these balloons of stress that bubble up or that build up. And you have to find ways there are ways that you release you pop those balloons and release the stress out. And that could be through just habits that you've done in the past, or consciously habits that are going to help support you in making burnout extinct and moving forward in what you're building for the business and your own quality of life. Then this habit, for when you have the question come up of why am I not further ahead by now, the habit to help you to reframe is looking back at your baseline in the past and noticing the growth to what your baseline is now, and understanding there's many styles of success. And so noticing where you are succeeding and or where you feel like you are succeeding and you're really great at, and channeling that energy and as fuel for those other areas where you need to improve for yourself. And then what I want to tell you right now is what could be that moment that comes up recently where you said that of why am I not further ahead by now? Can you remember also what was happening in that time? Like, were you were you comparing yourself to other people? Were you feeling like you hadn't eaten yet for food? Because I know that happens for me. I get hangry, so that happens. Or was I dehydrated and so I was getting anxious, and then I was like, oh, why am I not further ahead by now? But when you can notice what are also what's the I'm trying to think of the way to put this. What's setting the stage for this question to come up? When you can recognize that as well, that can help to catch yourself before you go down these tornado thoughts and go down this tornado thought of why am I not further ahead by now? That's another great way to catch it. And when you catch it, just celebrating that makes a major impact in changing the behavior and then the habits moving forward. And what I want to tell you is it absolutely is possible for you to do this and for you to listen to the signals from your body and make those changes and adjustments along the way. And then if you haven't heard it yet today, I want you to know I believe in you. You have the capabilities to make this happen and to continue to increase your capacity to move forward, to handle the growth that's happening in the business and for your own life, and be able to continue to show up and stay in the game. You got this.